Thank you all of you for joining us today. So my first question will go to Vincent, and we'll go right into the heart of the AI question and then AI in consulting. So what is the most productive use of AI that you see today in SIA Partners?
Well, there are many really interesting use cases, and I think what we recommend, what we see, the obvious ones around minutes, around PMO tools, etc., around research and data crunching, is very useful. But maybe if I'd like to focus, initially when we used it at the beginning, it was really more from an HR perspective, from a recruitment perspective. Actually, we receive about 200,000 CVs per year at SIAPARTNERS, so it's a little bit challenging to go through each and every single one CV. So we started using that, but where we now focus our efforts on is on using AI as a tool, more as a commercial tool to prepare our offerings and our proposal. So initially for market watch, regulatory watch, competitive watch as well, to ensure that we have a good understanding of what's available and what are the hot topics in the industries, to make sure we don't miss anything. So that's a pretty obvious case for us from a commercial perspective, but also in the next phase, which is also proposals. So we have a lot of material, and what we've been working on for the last few years is, first of all, to store as many proposals, all our methodology decks and approaches, etc., in one place, to be able to collect and to have enough data to use AI both to generate content and format. But the first thing in the process is that some of our clients send typically public sector, they send very long, detailed RFPs, etc. So we first use AI to analyze the RFP, to see if it's relevant for us, what part of the RFP is relevant to us, because sometimes you can answer a sub-part of the RFP, and also to quickly identify what are the offerings and capabilities we have that could be relevant for this RFI, and collect the right content, both in terms of know-how and slides that we can reuse, as well as credentials. So really interesting to use AI for these various phases of from the RFP to an initial draft of the proposal, I would say. So it's still, I would say, if I look at where we are, things are moving fast, and that's what we tell our clients all day long. So we have various PCs that work for each of those phases. What we're working on right now is on trying to make it a one-stop solution where it does all the things I did in one go. Right now we have to go step by step, but so that leverages Gen AI as well as descriptive AI, and that's pretty useful. You can save quite a lot of time, as you can imagine.
So thank you, Vincent. And I'm hearing two things that we also see in our own usage of AI and also with our customer. I see first that you had to build that knowledge base, a very strong repository of your past proposal, well organized, well structured, and detailed enough. And the second one is you didn't go from a manual process to a full automated process, and you're going like step by step, where you optimize some parts of it, and the next step probably for you will be to integrate these things once once you have a good, and especially I think your salespeople or your consultants, once they have a good level of trust in the AI. So this is very similar to what we're seeing in other use cases and other industry. Yeah. So maybe I want to go back to my two other guests today. So Charles, do you also use AI for your commercial proposal, and is it similar to what Vincent is describing, or completely different?
Yeah, so thank you, Vincent, for sharing your first ideas. So I would say, in principle, there's a bit of a similarities, but I think the major difference would first be routed in a bit of BCG's business model, as especially in China, we are more facing an ask of industry expertise, and also predicting the uncertainty in the future. In that sense, our stock of knowledge is useful for 101 type of a ramp up, especially for junior consultants. But these things, especially when you structure a proposal for the senior people, is you already know them, right? So it's more about shaping new ideas, also shaping ideas, shaping established practices from different categories or even different geographies, to try to understand and try to shape some ideas for CEOs and chairmen that we see here, who are actually quite nervous about the future, how to grow, how to transform. I think that's I would say the underlying difference of at least the clients and needs that we are seeing here. However, I think for, let's say, the working level for the junior consultants, AI is definitely a more powerful tool to first quickly distill a few guidelines, a few key knowledge of industry that they don't know of previously. Second, in the day-to-day work, I think a simple tool like synthesis of meeting minutes, synthesis of a client interview is also very helpful, because when I talk about facing uncertainties, a lot of the insights actually in the details. So it's both in the details of external information, but also in the details of the interaction with the clients. So you could miss, even when you take your notes by yourself, miss some of the big points. But I think AI actually help a lot to help you structure the ideas and help you keep a very structured memory of probably a very fruitful conversation with the clients. I think that's for the junior people. But this obviously leads to the challenge of how you actually train junior people, as they were supposed to do these things that could be replaced by AI. But we can come back to that topic a bit later. A second, I think for, like, say, senior level, for both for commercial proposal and for execution of the work, I think AI is actually playing more and more role in the creativity side. Okay, when I say creativity, is less about kind of 4A type of visual creativity type of work, but it's more like to get first is to source some ideas, maybe some details of a specific branding campaign of a new product launch of some competitors that you don't know of, that probably is very small today, but which actually you have great insights of how the market would evolve, how the consumers are evolving, that you would typically miss from a junior people's kind of lit research, right? I think it's a typical scenario. Second, I think it's also a little bit in the communication, because when you talk about new ideas, actually, using traditional way of communicating, like words, bullet points, is a bit dry. And sometimes actually AI help a lot to express the ideas in a much more in a way that is easier for your counterparts and for your clients to absorb. Right? So in a quite different angle. Yeah.
So thank you, Charles. So what I get is that if you have to do a commercial proposal and there are elements that never came before in any commercial proposal, the AI will be good at reproducing existing patterns, but will not bring you something totally new, totally out of the blue. So that's what I'm getting from the first part. For the second part, I think we'll get back to it later on the other one. Fabrizio, do you have any advice into how you can use AI to generate a very successful commercial proposal?
Yes. Actually, some of the things I had in mind have already been covered. But just piggybacking on what Vincent and Charles were saying, in my experience, in my line of work, there are two main points that come to my mind in addition to what was already shared. The first is on the analysis of client-specific data, especially to tailor proposals to make sure that the proposal are targeting the unique challenges or goals that the client may have, with the specific objective to create a more compelling narrative, if you will. The other thing is, which I'm sure many here also in the audience are familiar with, very often we have to come up with complex proposals. Now I am in organizational development, so there's very often is long-term horizon, multi-level impact on the client organization. So with AI, what we're doing is that it helps us identify unintended consequences, which is the plague of organizational development. You move something and then there are problems popping up. AI actually is proving quite useful in pointing out these things. So what we do in terms of application is that we literally use AI to figure out a little bit of the structure and compelling narrative. And then once the proposal is put together, we run it again through AI, asking AI to question it and to find the weak links and to propose possible unintended consequences that our, especially junior consultants, just to echo what Charles was saying, may not be fully equipped to figure out. Maybe a senior consultant might point it out, but even in that case, it's still a useful prompt. So this is something that we do, especially at an early stage. I mean, proposals by nature can be very early stage, and especially with newer clients with whom we don't have a lot of history. This is an effective use of AI in my experience.
Great. So if I understood correctly, so you you kind of test your proposal with the AI. How do you do that? You like ask the AI to play the role of the customer and be critical of it, or how do you do that?
Yes, actually, we set up different personas for AI. So one is my alter ego. So pretend to be the managing partner of your company and figure out if this makes financial sense. And the other persona is the challenging customer. So what would not resonate with the challenging customer? And then the third persona is, yes, the organizational development expert that looks at it through the lens of existing organizational development methodologies and body of knowledge. These would be the three ways we question our own ideas.
I think we're using another persona who is like the clueless customer, like what's unclear, like what question will pop up if I send this proposal, and then make sure we answer all these questions and make sure that everything is really being answered by the proposal. Yeah. So thank you. I think these are really useful practices that you all have there. So Fabrizio, I will continue with you. So you do collect a lot of data. So how do you use AI with all this data you collect from the survey you send to these organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are three main points here that I noted down because my memory is not great. But three main points and one interesting learning that I will share in a second. The first is obviously AI is a tremendous support to data analysis, especially in my business. We deal with a lot of data analysis at a scale, and so obviously AI processes vast amounts of data far more efficiently than traditional methods. So first application, quite obvious to many, is uncovering trends and insights that might otherwise go unnoticed. So a little bit, as I was saying, you know, like unintended consequences, that type of correlations that that the analyst may actually lose sight of. So that's the first thing. The second thing is definitely decision-making support. So especially when we get to the consulting phase, these real-time recommendations that we can produce and debate internally within the team and with the client, also leveraging on predictive analytics, that's definitely value adding for the client and saves us quite a bit of time. The third, which is probably a little bit more specific to my line of business. So if we think about human resources management, there's the obvious application of identifying talent gaps, predicting workforce needs, and even analyze team dynamics. Now, I think we'll cover these later, but obviously the key point here is the quality of the input data. Obviously, this is crucial. Without that quality of data to begin with, it's pretty hard to make good use of AI. And lastly, the last thing that I wanted to share in terms of impact on my consulting work or the work that my team does is the impact on the role of the analyst. So what is happening in my team, for example, I find it very interesting because traditionally the role of the analyst in my line of business is essentially a person who gathers a lot of data and, you know, works through the data, streamline, analyze these complex sets of data, and providing insights in a partnership with a senior consultant that figures out what to do with these insights. Now, the interesting thing is that thanks to AI, many of the analysts that I work with are taking a slightly different role. So the role is evolving because now they are equipped with the tools to provide even preliminary recommendations. Now, this is a minor change as of yet, but it's a great application that I am observing. So people that used to just analyze data and provide insights now are taking it one step farther, and they are now able to begin the formulation of solutions. Then obviously there still needs to be a bit of intervention by someone with broader expertise or direct knowledge of the client. But I find it impressive in terms of how much time and resources can be saved by doing this. Not even mentioning the professional development of the analyst specifically. So this is what comes to my mind to answer your question. Hopefully I managed to answer your question, Stefan.
Absolutely. And so using AI for this analyst job, is it cost reduction, improvement quality, speed, all the above, or what's the impact on your business?
All of the above, because obviously efficiency-wise, once the analyst is equipped to use AI, it becomes way more efficient. On top of that, there is also a quality output. Definitely quality has increased because it means that we have more time to fine-tune our solutions because we still have 24 hours a day. So every hour gained is an hour earned. And yeah, so all of the above.
So definitely consulting company who are not leveraging AI today, they are at a disadvantage compared to the three of you who are using it, right? That's what I'm hearing as well. So on that topic, Vincent, following up on what Fabrizio explained to us, it sounds like this will have an influence on the role of junior consultants in the consultant firm. So how do you see this impact their career and how they're going to start and how are you going to manage those pool of junior consultants?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think there's a question mark for the industry on, historically, when you start your career in consulting, you do a lot of research, a lot of data crunching, etc. Typically things that can be automated and replaced. So by doing so, you were used to, the kind of things that Fabrizio and Charles said around, learning and to analyze, to challenge information, etc., which is even more critical now with typically with Gen AI. We talk about hallucination, etc. So if we think that this can be done faster with less people, if any, how do you become senior in consulting based on the traditional model, right? If there's no junior tasks. So that's definitely a question mark, which also has an impact on the economic model of consulting, because as you know, in many consultancies, there is a pyramid model where the margins are usually higher on junior people, which are more chargeable as well, etc., while more senior people are more and more dedicated to QA, to business development, and this kind of work. So it could potentially impact this. So how do you become senior in consulting? It could impact the business model. At the same time, it challenges the question of who's an expert, and as it's not specific to AI, but it's not necessarily specific to AI. But I think when you have innovation and sometimes the new generations adopt this kind of innovation faster. And typically, I remember in the early days of blockchain and crypto, etc., most knowledgeable consultants were probably not necessarily the partners and the directors, but rather the young lads super keen on these new things happening and so on. So the question of seniority, business model, and where you bring value is going to be, as in any organization, I would say, how do you focus on the added value perspective and so on. So that raises a number of interesting questions for the consulting industry, I think.
So if there are the juniors of today are the partners of tomorrow. So if you have less juniors, you have less potentially partners, and you have the leverage, which is typically the slope of the pyramid in the consulting industry that is disrupted. So Charles, Charles, do you have any insights on how to solve that problem of like no junior, no senior, or less junior, less senior, and the leverage part?
Yeah. So I think Vincent touched on a very important point, which is kind of the fundamental value of a consultant as an industry, right, to our clients. Because I think if we look 10 year or 20 year back, the symmetry of information is one of the source of value, right? It comes to the data itself, or also it comes a way of effectiveness of analyzing the data. I think today, around the world, but even more in China, we're losing that, right? We have the imminence, the abundance of data available to everybody, and plus, in the Chinese business community, the Chinese war between competitors are even less protected versus I think the West. So I think we're losing that. So clients are more asking for expertise, and expertise usually lies in more on individual people, like senior people. This industry, that topic, versus a value proposition of a firm, right? So I think that's the challenge that we are also facing. I think when it comes to the way to train the junior people, I think unfortunately, I think both BCG and also I think many colleagues in the industry, I think the only way is to specialize the juniors even at earlier stage, to be quickly knowledgeable to a specific functional topic or to a specific industry. I know this sometimes takes out the value proposition of a firm like BCG, which is kind of more, cross-industry, cross-functions. But I think we're trying to find our way. So I think overall, I think it is a challenging topic for the industry, for the raison d'être, right? consultant. Then I would like to also maybe touch on what Fabrizio has mentioned in terms of the value of AI into the actual work. So I think what is very obvious is in terms of efficiency, it is definitely a value of AI, and it will be increasing, both in terms of distilling for information and the data. So all that I'm very much aligned. Then we have a second aspect which we talked about, which is insights. Right? Insights coming out of AI, insights coming out of data. That part is, at least from the clients that I've been facing, is very challenging in China. So I think there are two reasons behind. One is, how do we recognize the relationship between having new insights from the AI, from the data, versus using insights to providing more data information to the algorithm? I think there's a chicken and egg relationship. I will give you a very simple example. So 5 years ago, I think I was doing for one of the clients a data forecasting model for the baby category. Okay, and actually, if you understand the industry a bit better, one of the key driver is you have to know the birth rate evolution of the parents' generation. So for example, now we're sure that in 5 years, Chinese new births will be half of today, even taking out the marriage rate and birth rate, just because the 1905 generation and is much lower, has much lower people versus the 80s. But that information, if we were not aware of this insight, we don't provide this as data source to the algorithm. And then if you, whatever sophistication you have in Argo, if you take a random forest, very sophisticated one, it will then the algo will tell you it's the birth rate of 2 years before, which is the best predictor of the birth rate 2 years after, which is a no-brainer, right? So you have this circular logic of you have to have insights to predict the future, but if you don't have insight, the AI won't tell you anything. So I think that's something that is also kind of this chicken and egg between knowledge, expertise versus having new insights from the data. I think that's one. And the second is, I think, more specific to the Chinese context, which is what I always call the attitude towards AI. At least from the many local clients that I'm facing here, Chinese entrepreneurs usually are more experience driven. So they always have doubt from data. Either the data is not true, is not credible enough, or they always believe that there's some data that is the best predictor of a specific index, but they don't have access to. For example, back to my birth rate, example, the best predictor is actually the number of mom who actually registered in the hospital. They have that big 大镇小镇, right? When you, that is actually the best predictor, but you don't have the access to that data, but that's controlled by the government and public hospital, right? So they usually have this kind of, I would say, it's kind of a belief towards what AI can help them, which leads sometimes to some commercial difficulties. I also give you a very concrete example. We did a program for a French consumer company using AI for media spend allocation and trade and route to market. When I try to sell the same, which is very, very successful, strong buy-in from the management. When I'm trying to sell the same stuff to their local competitors, so same category, same channel, same media spend allocation, zero success. Very hard, because they are asking me the same question that I was asking the group here, right? So I think there is I think we need to work out our way towards that, but I think you have this kind of a structural challenge of AI. Yeah.
Thank you, Charles. So to come back to maybe touch again on these topics, but also to work out towards a summary before we move to the Q&A. In the context of consulting, so in your industry, the three of you, the industry you're in, what would you say is the biggest strength of AI in the context of the consulting industry, and what is the worst weakness of AI in the consulting industry?
So we'll start. I can start if you want for.
Well, you can start. I was asking Charles, but it's okay.
Sorry.
You want to start?
No, I can start. I can start. So I think the biggest strength and advantage, as I mentioned, was efficiency. So I think it's definitely a plus for our day-to-day work. And I think I already mentioned the value for the junior consultants and also for the senior guys. So especially for the senior guys to also grasp the details of many meetings that the senior cannot attend. That is also very helpful because, again, sometimes a lot of details of those interactions are very important. So efficiency. In terms of challenge, I would say it's the trying to deploy AI on an area in which you want to get new insights. It's a decision because it takes time to structure the data. It takes time to train the model, right? So there's always this calculation that you make beforehand that whether this route is worth the value, is worth the time, is worth the money. And I think it's the same calculation that many of our clients are making, especially among the local clients. Right? The multinationals is easier because sometimes there's some top-down decision made from the HQ that we want to build AI as a capability. Then the China BU, we have to do it. But if for the local ones, they always calculate the business incremental value from a specific capability building or investment.
You find it difficult, and I share your views. You find it difficult to predict the ROI of a project from the capabilities of the AI, and AI being so flexible, it is also unpredictable at the same time, and that makes it difficult. So either customers think it's magic and they think it's a silver bullet, or they don't even trust it. And of course, reality is somewhere in between, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So Vincent, do you see other strength in AI that we haven't mentioned so far?
Well, I relate to what Charles was describing, of course, and I would say it's only the beginning. You know, we're expecting a lot coming up from reasoning capabilities, etc. So, and the rise of AI agents in 2025 and beyond. And I would say that there's another big advantage of AI for consulting is it generates projects. So it's a big source of revenues potentially for consulting firms. So we need to be ready to tackle that as we started. But again, I think it's only the beginning. So I think we need to be ready and we need to adopt AI fully as. I don't think AI will replace consultants, or at least not everything in consulting. But AI, as for many other jobs, consultants using AI will definitely replace consultants who are not using AI.
Right. Thank you, Vincent. And Fabrizio, do you see a different weakness than the one we've been talking about? Do you see a weakness in AI that you need to be wary about, or maybe a trap you fell in earlier?
Maybe also connecting to what Charles was mentioning with the demographics mistake actually brought me a recent relatively painful memory. So very quickly, but essentially it's the over-reliance on AI, right? It's just going with what AI has produced. So that I think is something that will need to be we will need to be careful about, because AI is only as good as the data and the prompt and the information you feed it. So, and obviously we cannot expect AI to have contextual understanding. So there's this very brief story I can share. We were running a pretty broad organizational diagnostic for a client, about 2,000 people across 16, 17 different locations. And the analyst had a huge bias. The analyst was focused on location-based differences. But so as a result, the whole analysis and the whole product of AI was heavily skewed towards the location-based analysis. Now, the moment me and my other senior partner looked into the insights, we immediately realized that the analyst was not considering a pretty essential element, which was seniority of the people engaged. So all of a sudden, by adding that one layer of analysis, the whole output essentially changed. But so if we had just run with the output, we would have missed on a tremendous bias on the output. And in our line of business, I mean, that in this specific project, organizational development project, we couldn't avoid considering seniority of the respondents, for example. So this is one example where some critical thinking will still be necessary. And also echoing what Vincent was saying, I don't think AI is going to replace consultants, but consultants that can use AI will definitely get an advantage and a competitive edge, as long as we don't forget about critical thinking. and embedding our own expertise. Also, Charles was mentioning industry-based expertise and specialization. That is going to be crucial because of that contextual understanding. The same data, you can read it in 100 different ways, but the right way is the one that is tempered with your understanding of the client, the context, the industry, you name it, cultural factors. There are so many elements that AI may not automatically consider for the time being. Then we'll see in the future.
So Fabrizio, about the, I have one follow-up question on the example you gave. So why do you think that that using AI made kind of your analyst blind to the fact that he was going in one direction? Is it because the analysis is so quick that, okay, you don't have time to think, versus if it had taken like 2 or 3 days, you will have time to think? Or because it's produced by AI, it has that kind of aura of like, oh, that must be the best possible solution because it was made by AI? Was it one of these two biases or something else that led that analyst in the wrong track? Yeah.
I would say the latter. At least in this specific case, there was like the output looked so solid that it was so easy to consider a final one because it looked really solid. The correlation analysis was strong. The output was very convincing. But then again, the second thing I would like to add is that, of course, it looks solid, but because AI in this specific case was fed with a bias, there was a human error at the very beginning. So this is what, because AI is a tool, right?
Yeah. So somehow what you're describing, it's kind of a variation on hallucination, you know, when AI says something that is completely wrong, but it's so well written that you want to believe it. And you're describing something that is, I think, intellectually, cognitively in the same realm, that because it looks so good, we shouldn't trust it too much, you know, and we should always put a grain of salt, right?
Which, to be fair, just to add one note here, I'm getting a little philosophical maybe, but one of the pitfalls in consulting is confirmation bias, right? We've got our own ideas, and so whatever we see that confirms our bias, it's a confirmation. Now, the problem with AI is that I believe AI is an enabler and enhancer, but it also enhances whatever bias you're going with. So this is probably where we still need to be a little bit cautious and aware of the limitations of AI, because this is a prime example of amplification. It amplifies the good, it also amplifies the bad, and sometimes it's so good at making mistakes that you may just roll with the mistakes.
Absolutely. So this one, I totally resonate with what you just said, Fabrizio. The LLMs have been trained to make the user happy. So it amplifies like 100-fold the confirmation bias. So I've kind of trained myself to always ask negative comments, because if you ask positive comments to the AI, like tell me how good this is, they will come out with 20 reasons why it's the best piece of copywriting, analysis, or whatever that you've produced. If you ask for negative bias, you get something that is actually negative feedback. You get something that is actually more balanced. If you say, okay, tell me all the mistakes in my analysis, all the potential bias and flaws, you get some like more like a balance, like this is probably an issue, this is probably okay, this is probably an issue, this is probably okay. So it's kind of a way to work with the AI to always ask for negative feedback to get kind of balance analysis, put both negative and positive. If you ask for positive, it's going to praise you like it's Christmas all over again. Right? I have a follow-up question, and then that will be a nice segue into the Q&A, because we already have a few questions from the Q&A. So Fabrizio, since you're still on the spotlight, do you disclose? Are you fully transparent on using AI with your customer?
Yes. Yes, we do. Yes,
okay.
we do.
Same question.
Sure. We're lucky enough. So far, our clients fully understand, and in fact, we disclose it in the sense that we clarify which elements of our recommendations or reports are AI generated, for example. Yeah, I value transparency, so I just do that. Okay. I'm not even sure I should, but.
Vincent, same question to you. Are you 100% transparent with usage on AI?
I think you need to be for deliverables, product deliverables. And in fact, being transparent also enabled us to get some interest from our clients for new pieces of work and tools that we have that they want to adopt as well, etc. For what I was describing earlier related to proposals, building, etc. I mean, there's no interest, no point, or no discussion about this, to be honest.
Okay. Charles, same question for you.
I would say it depends. So if it mostly helped me on the efficiency side, I don't really mention. It's a bit like when you open a bar and you're opening a cocktail bar. If it's just replacing one of the employee that you pay with your cousin that you have to pay, you don't tell the clients. It saves the cost, but you don't lower the cost. But if it helps to really enhance the value of the deliverable. So, for example, it's not just a recommendation, but it's also a sustainable tool that the clients can keep to replicate the analysis that you do. You obviously tell the clients. So if you replace in your spritz Prosecco with champagne, you tell the clients. Right? So it's okay. Bit of this type of logic.
I like your examples. They're pretty.
Sorry, Charles. If you just one note here, as an Italian, if you change Prosecco with champagne, don't tell your customer if the customer is Italian.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think AI, has that positive vibe, and they want to see that it was made by AI, and it can have that positive effect. Okay, so nice time to move on to the Q&A. So we already have a few questions that came out throughout our exchange, and to all participants, don't hesitate to put more. We have another 11 minutes. So if you have other questions, don't hesitate. I'll get there. But first, I'm going to get with the first question there, and starting with the last one, because it relates a little bit to what I just asked you. So Michael was asking, is the use of AI impacting your pricing model? One might expect it will decrease the price, or does it mean that you have bigger margin using AI? So Fabrizio, did you increase your margin?
Not as much as I would like. No, more seriously. No, at the moment, the pricing strategy as far as my business is concerned, is not impacted that heavily. What has been impacted is time to delivery. So yes, in a sense, in those projects that are timesheet based, then yes, there is an impact, but not margin wise, if that makes sense.
Okay, and time to delivery, yes. I mean, delivering insights that are fresh has a lot of value actually. So even if you decrease your cost, somehow you increase the value to the customer, right? Okay.
No, exactly. But that's why so far we have added value without adding cost to client. Okay. So this is what I would break it down to.
Okay, Charles, any change in the pricing model? Like this is a price with AI and this is a price without AI?
So first, back to my cocktail example. If it's the first case, no. If it's a second case, in my French spirits example, I think it usually helps the clients to actually make the decision, but not on the price side, but as it not just a one shot work, but it's a capability that they can internalize. Second is we actually have I would say challenge or discussion, internal discussion on the other side, meaning I think we're trying to price our AI embedded project as same as traditional strategy project and just trying to premiumize and also justify the value of kind of a more AI background consultant and type of projects. In China, we have more challenges because that AI type of capability and resources is more abundant and easy to have access to in the China market. So we actually have problem on the other side. So try to match the price. Yeah.
Okay, and same question to you, Vincent. On the pricing side, you think if it's value based, the value is the same or even higher, or if it's time based?
That's exactly it. It depends on the perceived value and also the level of competition. I think so. If you have something which is really unique and that brings a lot of value to the client, I think of course you can increase your margin, but at the end of the day, competition gets there and will force you to align because there will always be someone who will go lower on the price and so on. So I think it's a way it's finding the right balance between those two. But I would say this is the same for any skill, right? So if you have a very specific skill that is rare and brings value, then you can increase the margin, and if as long as you bring the value, right? And if it's very commoditized, then you need to lower your price. Otherwise, big clients will go somewhere else.
Okay. Thank you. We have a next question from Zaman. What skills should junior consultant focus on developing to remain relevant in a landscape increasingly influenced by AI? So who wants to take this one?
Okay, I can continue if you want. On that one, I think, well, first of all, but usually for junior people, it's not so much of a problem, but being AI aware, and not everybody needs to be a data scientist, but everybody needs to embrace the use of AI. So I think that's obviously important. I think Charles was referring to the fact that probably earlier in your career you need to become an expert in something, but then the typical skills that consultants need to develop across types of consulting, cross industries, etc., remain relevant, right? Convincing skills, analytical skills, presentation skills, adaptability. I mean, this remains and is critical in our business.
Okay, thank you. Fabrizio, you want to add something?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wanted to add what Vincent just said. If anything, something that I think will necessarily remain quite relevant is going to be alongside with influencing and presentation skills. There is this ability to establish relationship and trust. And I don't think AI will replace that. As consultants, our ability to establish a connection with the client and customer and understand what they need, asking the right questions, uncovering the right information, that will probably still remain relevant for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Then we had a question from Michael. So when doing a summary or analysis, would not AI tend to remove the details that are essential, unique? So AI output can be a starting point for the consultants, but they need to maintain critical thinking. So that was more of a comment. And the question is, are you developing, customizing your own AI tool for these data analysis that are specific to your industry? Yeah. So Fabrizio, you talked a lot about data analysis. So are you using like market available tools, or are you developing your own? Yeah.
No, at the moment we are using either market available tools or tools that are developed by our partners. So we're not developing an AI tool internally to my business at the moment.
Yeah. Vincent, you mentioned that in some of your projects, you're also pushing your own technology. So
so of course we're before ChatGPT came up, we were training our models, etc., and we still do on some occasions. But of course, today we're not going to build an LLM. There's no point in that. But yeah, we based on use cases and developing agents or small language modeling occasions. So yes, we do. I mean, we do have we do use the technologies on specific cases to make sure it's more relevant to an industry or to a function, etc., etc. And we also indeed have developed tools for consultants to crunch data, for example, around data quality, or to challenge some controls in legal and compliance, to do some market watch, etc., etc. So yeah.
And next question maybe for you, Charles, and see the other one. So that's the last question that came in. Usually when you do all this data analysis, do you bring the AI tool to your customer so that the sensitive data stays there, or do you bring the data into your organization to do the analysis?
I would say at the beginning we have a bit of a both. I think it really depends on the nature of the work. When it comes to using data and AI to enable and drive strategic decisions, more internal, because it's more one shot. When it comes to more new capability building, new development, tool development, it would be the second case. It's easier for them the handover. And also a bit related to the first question. I think for BCG, we're trying to develop our own kind of AI consulting. So we have a BCG Gamma, now it's called BCGX. So we're trying to kind of develop and productize our own AI tools, so more specific by industry and functional topics, to try to sell, kind of commercialize, our own products.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then last question, which actually was the first question. So at the very beginning, Vincent, you mentioned you were using AI for talent assessment. So there was a question from Marin. So she's asking, or he's asking, that your AI-driven CV analysis, do you think it's really assessing the talent, or it's only assessing that the candidate has really tailored their CV to your offer? So is it just like matching keywords, or is it something deeper that is a good predictor of fit into the organization and potential for growth?
Well, so when we started using that, it was again early days, pre-LLMs, etc. So we, you train the model and it improves to identify the information you're looking for. Obviously, there are some pieces of information which are easy to check, the sort of consistency, gaps in careers, any specific expertise that seems relevant, or have you worked for any competitors? This kind of information is very. Of course, AI will not tell you if that person is professional, reliable, etc., etc. So it's not perfect, and it's just a tool to accelerate what the sort of screening you would do normally manually. But as I said, receiving 200,000 CVs per year, it's a little bit difficult to spend the right, and there would be with doing it manually with humans would also lead to some bias and so on. So it's a tool. You need to take it with a pinch of salt and use it for what it's for, right?
Thank you.